Greetings, Team Mount. It's me, Amber Nicole, your favorite diversity specialist. We are on the third day of February, so you know what that means. It is Black History Month. I am so excited to be sharing this time with you. First, let me say Habari Gani, which, of course, you may know means what's happening in Swahili, often used during Kwanzaa as they are going over the principles. And I also want to say Sawubona. Sawubona comes from the Zulu people, and it means I see you. It means that I see you, I recognize you in the space, your humanity and the fullness thereof. It is saying, thank you for allowing me to see you, and then you can see me as well. So how are we planning to amplify voices during this month? I am excited for Black History Month. I'm excited for Women's History Month. I'm excited for Asian Pacific Islander Month. I love heritage observations and celebrations, right? This video will be part 1 of 2, where I just provide a few tips and tools that you want to think about in order to kind of make this experience as culturally relevant, proficient, and that we're centering the right voice and that we are stretching our brains a little bit on how we want to acknowledge and celebrate this time. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are some absolute staples that we have to have as we're celebrating Black History Month, like lift every voice and sing. You can't have Black History Month without hearing the Negro National Anthem or a King quote from somewhere. But I am confident that being able to execute this in educational spaces in the most inclusive and culturally relevant way means that we have to find the trifecta of centering, as in centering the right voice and the messaging, authenticity, and then this balance of ethos and pathos. We're going to need the mind and heart through all of our heritage celebrations if we want to continue the principle of Sawubona, where I see you, right, and your humanity. So number one, as you are planning and thinking, and I know that we are already at an institution with amazing educators, and you are probably doing 90% of the things that I'm about to list, but it is necessary to list them. Black History Month can be heavy, even though it is supposed to be a celebration, right? And we have students who identify as Black, African American, and even if they are part of the diaspora from a foreign-born country, the thing is, we want to make sure that the emotional labor of what is going to be taught or expressed during this time is not placed on them. Those individuals already experience racism or discrimination in their everyday lives. So we need to ensure that this is a time, if you will, of easy lifting for them. I mean that in the sense that we want to truly be allies and advocates this month as it relates to talking about race, ethnicity, because we know that those can be very, very touchy subjects, sensitive, and they have the ability to cause more harm or trauma if not done correctly. Second thing is, over the years, where I see common missteps is simply a lack of creativity and thinking outside the box. It's the minimizing of history when there are very few scientists that don't agree that life started in Africa. It is very well known and accepted that life started in Africa. And more often than not, during Black History Month, we relegate the diaspora to what has happened on American soil or American achievements. As you are thinking about how to observe this month, I encourage you to look across the diaspora from the indigenous here on this land that were here prior to the colonization of Europeans. We can look at our Ghanaians. We can look at the indigenous people in Africa. We can talk about history in the sense that we know that because that was the first civilization, we're talking about ancient Egypt, that was they had the first monarchies, the first physician or autopsy was performed in Africa, literature, infrastructure that we still go see today that we call one of the 7 miracles, right? Or 7 wonders of the world. It is necessary to allow the history of the Black diaspora as you are teaching and having students experience it in its fullness and its totality. this is absolutely a time to tell stories, right? When reading literature about how to best mitigate bias or how to see people, their individuality for just simply who they are, storytelling is one of the things that comes up most. It allows us to connect in a different way with the lived experience of others. So I encourage you to think about Blacks that are in the Dominican, our Afro-Latina brothers and sisters, the ones that are in Haiti, the ones that are in Ghana. There are so many amazing stories to be told. And more often than not, we relegate the Black diaspora to American soil, started civil rights, move forward and sharing about Malcolm Martin, Mandela, and now Obama. The third thing that I want us to think about as we are sharing and observing Black History Month is equity in the stories that we share. Black women have been at the helm of every single movement for social justice on this soil, whether suffrage, whether Japanese internment camps, voting rights, LGBTQ+, Me Too movement, Say Her Name, Black Lives Matter. All Black women have guided us. But more often than not, we talk about our Black males. Okay, we talk about the males of the civil rights movement. If we're going to do this thing in an equitable way, let's remember to tell the stories. That it's amazing that Daisy Bates started, that Rosa Parks sat on the bus, and we talk about her sitting on the bus and the impact that had when they began to boycott those buses. But let's make sure we're also talking about Claudette Colvin, a 14-year-old girl who did it first, or 15, but because she was pregnant, the movement didn't feel that she would be the right look for the civil rights movement, right? And Rosa was more acceptable because she was already an activist in the community. So she also did more than just it. But equity means that we're going to make sure that we're amplifying the voices of Black women during this time as well. And the last point for this video is remembering that language is a labor of love. And if we're going to facilitate dialogue about specific identities, race, ethnicity, it can be heavy. And it is important that we do so by honoring those lived experiences and identities and the intersectionality thereof with justice. So if you're speaking about the transatlantic slave trade, it's important for us to remember that the European colonizers did not brutally capture and maliciously take slaves from Africa. No, they took fathers and doctors and architects and healers and friends and sisters, and then they enslaved them, right? They didn't take slaves. So we need to make sure that we're speaking to what actually happened. They were enslaved, they were not slaves. That takes the responsibility off of saying that, it was wrong. Additionally, we often talk about the Black, Indigenous, and people of color are often referred to as minorities. Black, Indigenous, people of color are the global majority. So there is not an underrepresentation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. There is, of course, the fact that we've been historically excluded, thus leading to the underrepresentation in various fields and in industries. So again, justice is necessary when we are framing these conversations. And then the last just tidbit before we get out of here on video one, the importance of making sure our students and the people around us that we're sharing with understand that Black history is American history, and that it is every single day that each of us lives, we are making history. So let's allow the conversation around Black History Month or Women's History Month to be just as broad, because there's so much diversity and it is all beautiful. And we have to make space for all of it if we are truly trying to do what we say we're trying to do, which is create intentional, inclusive spaces for everyone. I'll see you in part 2.